There is a certain kind of hunger that does not gnaw the stomach but the soul. It appears in people whose lives have collapsed into routine and noise, who wake each day to nothing worth kneeling for, nothing worth losing sleep over. Their calendar is full but their heart is empty, so they go hunting for easier prey, the lives of others. They dissect, whisper, insinuate, smear. They call it conversation, culture, commentary. It is none of those things. It is anesthesia. It is the narcotic of the small. Petty people don't build. They borrow. They borrow the heat of other people's fire to warm their cold rooms. They scavenge reputations like crows, carrying shiny fragments back to their nests of boredom. They cannot stand the sight of someone moving, creating, risking, because motion exposes their own paralysis. So they sling mud. If they cannot rise, they will happily dirty the one who does. This is the first law of smallness. If I cannot be tall, I will make tall look filthy. There's psychology behind the poison, and it isn't complicated. Comparison is the oldest blade the mind turns against itself. When a person lacks a coherent self, no discipline, no craft, no vow to bind them, esteem becomes a zero-sum economy. The success, beauty, or vitality of another doesn't register as possibility. It registers as theft. You being bright, the small mind believes, has stolen my light. Envy becomes moralized into judgment. The brain performs its little alchemy. I am not lazy, you are pretentious. I am not frightened, you are fake. I am not mediocre, you are overhyped. In that transmutation, the envious soul gets a brief rush of dignity. It is counterfeit, but it spends well on the street corner of the moment. Pettiness is not just envy's tongue. It is also fear's mask. To throw mud at someone else is to say to the world, do not look at me too closely. Gossip is a smoke bomb. If we keep our eyes on their scandal, no one will notice my emptiness. If we keep reciting their failures, no one will hear the silence in my house. This is why small souls prefer the plural. They speak as we, as a chorus, a crowd, a thread, because the collective voice dissolves personal accountability like acid. We all know, everyone can see. People are saying, translation, I am terrified of speaking only for myself. There is also the deep and rarely admitted pleasure of cruelty. The Germans gave it a tidy name, Schadenfreude, but the phenomenon is older than language. Watching someone tremble, fall, or blush offers a shot of superiority to the malnourished ego. It is the only sovereignty the small ever feel, the momentary high of standing above another's embarrassment. That moment will be paid for later with loneliness and self-contempt, but pettiness is a short-term drug. It has no interest in futures. It wants the hit now. Contemporary culture industrialized this instinct. Once you had to work to find a rumor. Now the rumor finds you. Whole platforms exist to monetize tiny minds. An algorithm that fattens itself on outrage will always serve you more reasons to sneer. It does not care whom you harm. It cares that you return. We have built attention mills where the cheapest grain is contempt and the most profitable commodity is humiliation. Call it what you like. Discourse, hot takes, clout. It's the same old spectacle. Civilians stoning each other in front of the amphitheater while the emperors pour wine. Petty people secretly understand that mud sticks best when thrown as virtue. The smear has advanced degrees now. It speaks the dialect of ethics. It dresses itself in the robes of concern. I just worry about their influence. I'm only raising important questions. I think it's dangerous if we don't talk about this. What looks like care is often hunger wearing chaplain's clothing. The voice trembles, the brows furrow, the tone is grave. But beneath the ceremony, the heart is enjoying itself. The blade is sharper when it pretends to be a bandage. Philosophers named a force at the root of this, ressentiment. It is the long, slow rancor of those who cannot or will not create. Faced with the hard fact that becoming requires pain, they invert the value system. They declare pain oppressive, effort elitist, excellence suspicious. Instead of climbing the mountain, they poison the air around it and call the summit corrupt. They build a moral vocabulary whose real purpose is to make greatness feel like a crime and smallness feel like justice. There is another engine, mimetic desire. People want what others want, not because they need it, but because others wanting gives the thing its shimmer. When an object of desire appears, status, love, audience, victory, a crowd forms. The crowd selects a scapegoat to absorb its bile. The chosen victim becomes the compost heap for everyone's frustration. This is why strangers will dedicate hours to hating a face they have never met, a name they cannot place on a map, a life that never touched theirs. The scapegoat provides relief. It is not my failure that stings. It is their fault that so many failed. The lie works for a while. What does pettiness do to a person who practices it? Calcifies the heart. The first few times you speak toxically about another, you feel the aftertaste, a little shame, a prickling in the chest. Keep doing it and the shame disappears. The mouth toughens. The conscience goes quiet. Where empathy once lived, technique moves in. You learn timing, angles, plausible deniability. You become efficient at cruelty. This is how smallness becomes a career. It starts as gossip and ends as identity. Notice how the petty speak about time. They are always busy, yet never building. They memorize the schedules and secrets of people they despise. They collect missteps like stamps. The museum of their mind houses exhibits of other people's accidents. And yet ask them about their craft, their oath, their chosen labor. There is nothing to see. Pettiness survives on unspent hours. Cannot coexist with devotion. Work exposes you. Work humbles you. Work steals the oxygen from gossip because you barely have breath for your own ascent. There is a practical reason pettiness thrives in empty lives. It is cheap intimacy. Two people with no shared mission can form a counterfeit bond by hating a third. Feels like closeness. Feels like trust. It is in fact a contract signed in cowardice. The moment either party leaves the room, the third chair is filled again, this time with the one who just left. In that economy, everyone is collateral sooner or later. If you accept intimacy on those terms, know the invoice arrives eventually with your name on it. Why do the small obsess over the moral flaws of the living yet offer sainthood to the dead? Because the dead cannot compete with them. The dead cannot make them feel inferior today. They will praise a genius gone cold while spitting on a working artist across the street. They will chant oaths to a martyr from a century ago while snickering at the man who risks something in the present. Time blunts envy. Distance removes the sting. Pettiness must always choose a target near enough to bruise the ego. The past is safe. The neighbor is not. If you want to spot smallness in yourself, observe the micro-joy that flares when you hear someone you envy has stumbled. That flicker is a teacher. It's telling you exactly where you feel unmade. That's the coordinates of your work. Most bury the signal under a sermon. The rare few use it like a compass. This pain reveals my poverty. Build there. What cures pettiness? Not moral lectures. Not performative kindness. Only construction. Only vow. Only the daily collision with a task that can break you. People who are building do not have time to make other people small. They are too busy sewing their own pieces together. They learn reverence the hard way as callous. They discover that anyone who finishes anything deserves a moment of silence, because finishing is a kind of miracle. It is easy to point at the cathedral and list its flaws. It is hard to lift one stone. If you want to starve the smallness around you, deny it your attention. Do not feed the threads where the bloodthirsty congregate. Do not parrot the language of the mob even when the mob wears your jersey. More personally, refuse to weaponize virtue. If you must criticize, do it plainly with your name attached, with a specific aim that has nothing to do with your ego's ache. Most won't. They will prefer the fog. Fog is comfortable. You can strike in it and pretend you were only waving. A darker truth. Some people cannot be reached. They do not want a life. They want leverage. They will never speak of building because building requires failure and failure humiliates a person who worships image. They will haunt the edges of other people's work forever, throwing pebbles and taking victory laps. Leave them there. Your job is to outgrow the terrain where they thrive. They cannot follow you up the mountain. There is not enough oxygen for them up there. Pettiness is a low-altitude sport. This does not mean silence in the face of evil. It means the discipline to distinguish between justice and jealousy, between calling out harm and harvesting status. If your mouth opens more often for the sins of acquaintances than for the suffering of your own soul, you are not brave, you are bored. And boredom is a moral hazard. It drives people to spectacle when they should be driven to prayer, to practice, to penance, to the long quiet of becoming someone worth listening to. People with full lives do not throw mud. They are too covered in their own honest dirt. They don't have immaculate hands. They have work-stained hands. They don't gossip about courage. They spend theirs by noon. They don't savor humiliation. They have tasted too much of their own to enjoy someone else's. They carry a memory of their worst days like a relic. Enough pain to keep them merciful, enough victory to keep them moving. If you find yourself inside the smallness industry, producing, consuming, enjoying, walk out, you will lose a crowd and gain a life. Trade the theater of opinion for the laboratory of effort. Replace gossip with craft, sarcasm with study, posturing with practice. The first week will feel like withdrawal. The second will feel like hunger. By the third, you'll notice something alarming. Other people's triumphs begin to inspire rather than accuse you. The mirror hurts less. Your voice steadies. You do not need to spit to taste power. You have some at last because you are spending yourself on something that can fail. The petty will say you've changed. They're right. You stopped needing their drug. They will offer you another hit. Moral panic, tribal outrage, a high-grade scandal to snort with your eyes. Decline. Their world is a carnival lit with dying bulbs. Your path is a road in the dark, but it leads somewhere. The last test arrives quietly. Someone you envy collapses. The flicker in your chest ignites, then falters, then dies. Good. It means you've grown. Offer them the silence you once begged for. Then turn back to your work. There are only two economies in human life. One hoards smallness, compounds it, and distributes it as poison. The other hoards responsibility, compounds it, and distributes it as bread. Choose. If your days are empty, the first will recruit you by noon. Fill your days and it loses teeth. And if you must speak of another, let it be like this, not to shrink them, but to remind yourself what is possible for a human being shaped by vow. That is the opposite of gossip. That is gratitude wearing a name. It makes you bigger. It makes you dangerous. It makes the smallness industry lose a customer. Let them throw mud, build higher walls, then build windows, then invite in anyone who is done starving on scraps of other people's lives. Feed them, but make them stack chairs before they eat.